Hello again, everyone. We had some technical issues there, and we are back. I am joined today by Sam, and Sam is a previous PDC student of Verge and has his own permaculture thing going on. And before we get started, I'm just going to say a quick word from our sponsors, New Society Publishers. New Society Publishers is proud to be celebrating 40 years of activist, solutions-oriented publishing. From their roots in nonviolent civil disobedience training during this Vietnam War to today, they continue to bring positive solutions and cutting-edge ideas to some of the most troubling challenges of our time. Committed to building an ecologically sustainable and just society, they walk their talk by printing their books in North America, never overseas, and on 100% post-consumer recycled paper. They are carbon neutral and have been since 2006. The employees are shareholders, and they are a certified B Corporation. Check them out at www.newsociety.com. And until December 6th, use the code CONNECT with a capital C to get 50% off. Some great books in there. Fantastic Christmas presents. All right, let's get rolling, Sam. How's the day?
Good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Me too. No worries. My pleasure. So before we were talking about your PDC experience with Verge, and we got a little bit cut out, and you're talking about how you've got your own permaculture school going on, but got cut out by COVID. So can we just rehash that old conversation again?
Yeah, sure. So it is not my own. It's an organization called Millennials that I've been in the business for almost 10 years, and I'm co-teaching there for 2 years now.
Okay.
And I'm part of the core team. And, we were planning our PDC as we do every summer, our 12-day immersed in the land with wonderful people, about 40 people every court. And we were planning as every day, as every year. And we were blocked by the pandemic. So we wanted to take it as an opportunity, as we always say in permaculture, the problem is the solution.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make digital PDCs, but we weren't really ready. We hadn't the skills or anything like that. So we postponed the digital PDCs. And when I saw Verge that just turned on really fast to make his own PDC, I was really inspired, and I was kind of a spy, to say the least. And I wanted to know how they would pull this out. And to be honest, it was an incredible experience.
Amazing. And you had a really interesting project, actually, which prompted this entire conversation. It was really good, and you highlighted a lot of really good points. And what I'm hoping to be able to talk to you about today is, well, a number of things, but permaculture for millennials. Let's start there. So how do we get millennials more involved in this? Because they are going to be potential land stewards if we're going to get out of this mess that we have set in front of us in the future. What methods do you think are appropriate to be able to get millennials into this world and start making more active change?
I think the first thing is to have like a kind of generational literacy. Like it's been 20 years that we are beating up on millennials, but millennials have grown up. And they are not anymore the youth and the youngsters. You know, we are the ones born between 1980 to 2000s, let's say. Those have, they don't have like clear borders, generations. It's more a cultural thing and so on. But let's say that we are now the adults. And it's a weird thing to say when you see the last like presidential election in the United States. Those guys are almost 80 years old. So we really live in a time where adulthood have been pushed away, and it's the same generation that is in power since the 70s, let's say. So Biden is in the Congress since the 70s. And I think we have been pushed away in responsibilities, in the culture, and so on. And I think we are now the generation that have to put his weight on their shoulders and take the weight of the civilization, that to
Hmm.
be honest. And of course, we do live in another world, as the boomers were after the Second World War. We don't have the same, let's say, opportunities. Even if the narrative is almost the same, we don't live in the same progress in what we call like the great 30s between 1945 and 1975. And there
Hmm.
is energetic reasons for that. In the mid 70s, it was the oil crash and so on. And we have been postponing like a lot of um, design defaults in the system, and we have put, as we say in French, we have put the how we say, under the rags, like for a long time. And I think for millennials, it's to understand their place in history,
Hmm.
that the narratives that we have been sold since the last Second World War is not anymore the same, that we cannot count on the financial system, on the energetic system as it was in the past. And I think we have to wake up to another world, a world where we have to put the work in. um, and the thing, I think, is really the responsibility piece. Like, the first thing I say, that we are not anymore the youth. That's really an important thing. We are now adults and
Hmm.
we are grown-ups. And I know it's like our culture is still based on, we like asking for our parents, like the riots, the BLM, the we go to the streets and we're gonna ask our governments for reparation and things like that. Like, I don't think it's a good attitude. I don't think there is any more parents over there. I don't think people in powers know what they are doing really. And we have like to take a step back and gather together and say, what is the situation? Why are we? What is the future that is the more probable? Because we are all faced by uncertainty, of course.
Hmm.
And what would be anti-fragile strategies, so we can, live a good life and be resilient in the future, that would be prepared for the least.
It's definitely really weird. And yeah, I really like that because it's people do need to take responsibility and not depend on our governments to be able to make those changes for us. And um, it's really hard for some people. Like a lot of my friends don't think the world is in dire straits, which is troubling to say the least at sometimes. So how can we make, not to get in too much into fake news and what's this and what's that, but how can we communicate how much of dire straits that we are into, even people our age? I'm assuming we're maybe around the same age. I'm not sure how old you are, but young 30s, older 20s, there's still people who aren't quite tuned into what's actually happening in the world. So what do you say? What can you say?
So, for context, I'm 30 years old. So
Okay.
right in there, like archetypal millennials, right? Like
Mhm.
9/11, I was like going into high school. I went into my majority into the financial crisis. And then, like in my adulthood, 30 years old, here is the pandemic, right? So that's like the storyline for my generation. Um, as you said, I think that um, it's not about like preaching. It's not about like waking up other people to virtue signaling.
Mhm.
We are really good at that, our generation.
Oh, too
And
good.
I don't think we have like to preach. I think we have to embody. And there were this guy, like this famous philosopher, rock star, a Canadian called Jordan Peterson, as you probably know.
Oh yeah.
And you can critique him on many points, but he resonated with something, in the culture. Like, he was famous for a reason, and he was famous for young men of our age for a reason. And what he was saying is approximately that stop complaining, look at your life, and clean what is yours
Yeah.
before giving advices, before saying like, guys, we have to wake up, we have to like clean the mess all around, like it's the collapse coming, like how nobody is awake to this reality. Like, I think he was right to say in a gentle way, first shut up, go to work, and embody, and then maybe people will mimic, or
Mhm.
and that's the point I was getting. As we are now the adults, we're not the grown up, and being a grown up is being the example for younger generations, because there
Mhm.
is another generation over there. There is a generation that are now adults, that are born in the 2000s. we call
Yeah.
them we call them the Zoomers, or sometimes the silence generation. And I think our work now is to maybe talk a bit less, maybe stop sharing around, like, whatever virtue signaling we have to say, like, we are part of the enlightened people that knows where we're going, and maybe start to work on what is ours, right?
Yeah. Make it accessible. And it's, yeah, get up, make your bed, go to work, make a good example, make it fun, and save the world while doing it. Cut out there. Did you hear me?
Could you
You seem
hear
to
me
be back.
good?
I could. Yeah, you went a little frozen while I was talking,
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree. Like, Jordan Peterson is controversial in some respects, but in others, he's an absolute genius and really hits the nail right on the head with so many points, especially for that accountability and just doing it and taking responsibility. Seems we're having technical difficulties again.
Definitely.
Hmm. Can you hear me now? I just turned my video off. Can you, let's try that out.
Okay.
Okay. I think, yeah, you got a pretty good feed going now. Alrighty. So what do you think is the best way to lead by example? If there aren't many millennials actively working on this, and we're in a position where we don't have land, how do you feel is the best way to be a good example?
Um, I think permaculture is a great tool set for that. Like, to get back to our context, where why we are talking to one another. I think permaculture is really like the civics education that we never had.
Oh,
it's really
absolutely.
it's really about like what are the basic skills of being a human. It's really like getting back to the roots of like, okay, what am I on and where am I? Okay, I'm a human. I'm a biological system that interact in an ecosystem. Really,
Mhm.
like this is the base. Like we can talk about like many narratives around, and there is like fake news and really a warfare. Everything is weaponized around, and permaculture is really like getting back to, okay, there is like basics, values, and information that we can all agree on, and not like fight over what's your position on this, on that, and so on. So I think it's really getting back to those basics. And as I just said, like the information ecosystem is really weaponized. And I
Mhm.
think the first step for us digital natives that are so immersed in this ecosystem is really like to bring back our sovereignty around our attention, because this is the most important asset we have. The attention is where you put your conscious in and what you do with your time. And like there is so many hyper stimuli over there, so many traps really like to get your attention. I
Mhm.
think the first step for us is reclaiming this attention. And from there, from where am I, what's my ecosystem, where am I connecting, like really on a basic way of the land, not like stressing out about what's happening over there in the United States, or whatever, always existential risk happening on any news feed all the time,
Everywhere.
is everywhere all the time, right? It's like, uh, so who am I as an animal in an ecosystem, and then finding like who am I in a, in a more, like, I don't want to say spiritual way, but what's my calling? What's my niche? What
Mhm.
I've what are my particular skills? What are my particular interests? Where am I attracted to naturally? What is my force that I can give? And not like in a way of, I want to do like global impact and I want to be an influencer and all those crap, is really like, how can I work to advance a little bit every day of my community, my locality, my culture, and what's around me. Really is and I really want to dig down on this, like simplifying your life, because there is so much crap around. It's really crazy town. And I think our first step for us is getting back to silence in a way, and extracting ourselves to all those crazy narratives, and then work on the most basic things, which are, you know the the land, uh, the infrastructure around me, and and the people around me. And I want to say, um, like, getting curious around the you are living in. It's there is these traps that try to aspire us into narrative,
You're cutting out a little bit,
like
Sam.
I said. But how is it? Oh, I'm cut again. I think it's your internet. Is it?
I'm
Is it good now?
yeah, it was pretty intermittent right there. I just turned my video off, so seems to help. Which is weird. I haven't had internet problems before, but
Weird. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it sounds good. I think I'm just going to keep my video off, and then people don't have to look at my face. They can just look at yours.
So I was saying, like, getting curious to what's around you, the biological system that you interact with every day as you want or not. You do share your life with all kinds of plants, minerals, animals. Where is my water coming from? How
Mm-hmm.
is my house built? How the electricity is working? Where is it coming from? When a drop of water is dropping in my watershed, where does it goes? And all those questions, this curiosity around like the concreteness of our experience, I think it's our work.
Yeah, amazing. So you've obviously put a lot of thought into this and finding what you feel is an appropriate way forward. So do you have any tips for anyone who's struggling and doesn't know what their calling is? They don't have a particular skill set that they want to bolster and improve the world forward. Do you have any tips to anyone who might be struggling with that? Because there, as we were talking about earlier, there's just so much bad news everywhere, and it's so easy to get so bogged down, overwhelmed, and paying so much attention to the bad news and not actually building your own skills. So do you have any tips for anyone who wants to they want to get into making solutions? How do they start? How did you
Yeah,
start?
um, by being playful, like not taking yourself too seriously. But that's my own strategy, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's a good one.
I'm a kind of a joker, and you look like one too. But
Thank you.
like that, not every people have this temperament, right? And
Yeah.
and some people really, in our generation, really live like anxiety, like on a pathological level, and that's
Mm-hmm.
serious. You cannot just say, "Oh, take it easy, bro." Like there is nothing to worry about. As I did, like I think I want to, not seriously because I'm never serious, but sincerely, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Um, as I said, like it's when you question yourself all the time, you're not living your life. So it's really about having a beginner's mind, which means like don't put too much weight on yourself. Like you're nobody.
Yeah.
Like that's something Jordan Peterson always said. Like you don't know anything. You are just a 20 years old that have like almost no education, no perspective on history, like no knowledge of where you are, what it is. So like take it easy first, and then start to play. Start to, as is the first principle in permaculture, observe.
Yeah.
Like shut up. So as Saint Francis said, try to understand before being understood. I think that's a good design
Mm-hmm.
principle also. So start to observe and start to interact. Start like small and slow solutions. Just go there and play. Like it's raining outside. Let's see like what water is doing on the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Being this playful. So learn from the land that is around you. Anywhere you are, climate in the world, there is always something. We are domesticated humans. There is always like what is the wood that is made of those things? Like what kind of metal is there? What is steel? What is
Yeah.
this alliage? What there is always that is playful and want to interact with the world. I think that's the first. And then learn from other people, like discussion, we were a bit bashing the boomers, this meme around okay boomers, you don't know where we are, so on. But like people with experience, like recently had uh, a long time on this word and have embodied around things, embodied knowledge that is skills. So just giving your time to those people and say here I am free and I want to learn. And then that's the thing also, I've worked on farms and kind of and woofers during those times, and there is like design to be of are important. It's really about basic work ethic around like how what kind of tools I have. If I'm on a construction site, do I have basic like a pen and glasses, and not asking always for like, can I borrow that? Can I borrow that? Like those kind of thing. Having a posture of being of proactive. Like, what is the next step I can be of, not always asking like, so now what I do, and now what I you always see generation. I think those are really good design principles, and not being afraid of being a beginner and not knowing stuff and doing mistakes. That goes with the work ethic. Like when you go see a mentor and you say like, I don't know shit, but I'm motivated and I want to be useful. Those like I mostly don't know any people that would like refuse this kind of energy. And then like, before you do understand the problems of the world, but do you really understand them? Have you really like map the problem space? I think this is really important. Before like let's say I want to have an impact on forestry, which is one of my center of interest. uh, am I only one-sided to it? Am I only saying like, we have to protect trees, trees are sacred? Do you hear the other side of the discussion that say that like, we have to create jobs, that you can talk from your privilege and going into the forest and saying that they are sacred, but do you know the experience of not like living in a village in the forest peripheral place where there is no job, and
Yeah.
it's the only place where we can have a livelihood? Like, do you understand all the faces of the problem space before having an opinion? And it's not about opinion, it's about having an educated guess about what is the problem space and what are the different solutions, and having like the different perspectives, being trans perspectives, to have a multiple world word. I think it's really important, and it gets back to the like, I'm just inflamed by the narrative that was on my eco on network. Maybe I don't know anything about the market and the globalization around the world market and so on. Like, let's study the problem space before screaming for like and insulting the other side. So that would be like, so if we take back, like, it's really observe, interact, being playful, having a beginner's mind and a growth mindset, having some basic usefulness around work ethic and so on, and studying the problem space before screaming solutions.
Yeah, I feel like coming to that round table without any previous hang-ups is really the only way forward. Because if you go to a round table and start bashing everyone, no one's going to want to collaborate. No one's going to want to work together.
Which happen all the time. Like
Yeah.
as I said before, like we really live in a weaponized environment where narratives don't listen to one another. They're just screaming. It's really dangerous. Like I mean it. Like our republic, even Canada is not a republic, but a constitutional monarchy. Even that is in danger. We do, and I think it's one of the job of our generation. It's to enliven the what it means to be a citizen. You know, having the etiquette around around discussion. You know, civil discussion. I think it's really, really, really important.
Absolutely. And I really loved how you brought up playing and just being playful. I feel like that's so important as well. And I know for myself, when especially with food, I don't think we play with our food enough. And that comes down to fermentation too. And you can be so playful. And I think a lot of people are really afraid that if they do something wrong, a black hole is going to form and the world's going to get sucked up, and people are afraid to fail. And that's something we definitely need to be ditching. But it's ingrained in our school systems now. Like I mean, I've been living in New Zealand for about 3.5 years, and this hadn't been implemented there yet. But I've heard of other things in North America where no one loses anymore in sports games, which I think is quite dangerous as well, because people aren't learning to look at what went wrong and how they can do better. They're just afraid to lose.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, that was one of my realization, like really early on, that our school system is really not there to help us develop as useful human beings. And it was really tragic, you know, as you said before, like how can we help other people wake up or whatever. Like I think there is a grief process going on, that yeah, I mean, I wasted most of my of my youth, like, and I didn't have the right operative system to live in the reality we are in, and even more we are going to. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we don't, like, we are on a spaceship going nobody where knows where, and there is not much people knowing really like what we ought to do. And I think we have to experiment all kinds of stuff. and and our society is really hard on people failing, you know, entrepreneurs that fail. Like that's a shame, but no, that's how society evolved. That's how natural selection works, but not in the sense that you're too weak, you like you lost the evolution game. It's not saying that. It's saying like, nice try, bro. Like here is other resources to know from your mistakes and try again. And this society that don't want failing will create a fake security, you know, around like, here is your wage salary, and you just have to put retirement, and you just have to push those buttons until like until the end, until the paradise. And then we are not in phase with what is reality. For evolution to goes on, we have to try all kinds of stuff, and we have to fail like miserably, time and time and time again, until we find like good solution. And that's how we learn. That's how we evolve individually and on a societal level. So that's a really important point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know in your presentation that you had given for your PDC, you had highlighted the importance of getting through this grieving stage that so many of us are going through. Do you have any tips other than being playful on how to get through that? Because I know, I mean, myself, I've gone through it. But I'm always curious about other people's journeys.
Yeah. I like this phrase like collapse now, avoid the rush. I think that's great. Um, but like first is the humility of like the future is pretty uncertain. Like and having like this many perspective as I was talking about, that says that like there is a big chunk of this society that thinks that we are things have never been better, we are on a path to progress, our problems are only technological limits, and we're gonna mine asteroids and go into Mars and whatever. And like those people are pretty intelligent. Like it's not to be just put aside like that. So that's a narrative that is pretty strong. On my side, I am more like of the one studying collapse because I am an ecologist by training, and I do understand ecological footprints, concept like overshoots that are and civilizational collapse that it's we're not the first one, and we have signs of it, and it's we have like particularities on the scale and the impact of our collapse. So this is my side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is my side, and
Mm-hmm.
I might be wrong. Future is always uncertain. There could be a black swan or a white swan that just, and then the path we are on, like, will just like there will be a technological breakthrough that we will find like free energy, and it will be like partying until the end of the day, until the end of whatever. That could be, but for me it's pretty not probable. Here
Yeah.
we in an uncertain, you can put your bet, and I do put my bet on something. But then on the face of uncertainty, I'm really influenced by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, which is a fellow Mediterranean thinker. This concept of anti-fragile design.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what the future is bringing on, like, let's put your eggs in a basket that in any cases you would win,
Yeah.
right? So for me, I get back and I say, like, what's living in a good life? Is it being in a high scrapper in San Francisco, like coding 16 hours a day for like weaponized social media? Is that the life I want to live? Really? No. Okay. So that's my bet. Like living a good life is mostly around like good food, good people, living in fruitful landscapes, interacting with the ecosystems, learning from 5 billion years of tinkering and research and developments, and knowing about like the ecosystemic processes, and trying into my structures, into my life, into my design, and helping other people, being like amazed as I am about this reality we are living in, and this blue planet that is the only one that we know of. So that's my bet, right? And to get back onto the grieving process, I mean, I don't want like I'm joking around it and I sounds funny and so on, but massive tragedies. are upon us. This is not like civilizational collapse is not a walk in the park. Like it's pretty harsh for most of the people.
Hmm.
And I mean, and there is tragedy in life in general. I don't want like to relativize it, but this is part of maturity. This is part of accepting like that our hubris, our vanity of thinking that we are over everything, like our consumer societies that think that like we're gonna party all the time on fossil fuels and we would like not die or whatever. Like, this is part of being a grown up. Like things people that are dying, you have to accompany, you have to follow them truth. Like I do think there is big work to do into hospice work,
Hmm.
like being around people that are dying, because a lot of things are dying and will die. And it sounds horrible, and we have taboos around it in our culture. But yeah, civilization live and they die, and it's a pretty harsh process to be part of. Does it says like that I will be depressed and it sucks? No, it means for me to really pull my sleeves and get to work. And there is other generations that will come. Lives will on, and life will go on.
Uh,
In a better way in the long future. But yeah, that's my bet that we are the generation of mourning.
yeah. Which, yeah, it's a hard realization, but once you make that realization that you know things aren't looking that great, there's only so much lying around and being sad you can actually really do. And I know for me, one day, well, not really one day, but being a climatologist was like, okay, like I can either use these skills, use these thoughts, use this framework for good, or I can let it bog me down. And every time I see it, an airplane go overhead, I can get upset. But taking a step back and looking at the world and okay, this is what's in front of me. This is what I can do, and I'm gonna do it. And little by little, step by step, you get momentum. You start going, and then you realize there's no other way to live.
Exactly, bro.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you in your um, audio recording for your permaculture project, which I really enjoyed listening to, by the way. It was really insightful and awesome. You talked about salvaging quite a bit, salvaging for materials and repairing things. And is this something you actively do? And if so, what do you do? How do you go salvage things? How do you decide what's valuable? And do you have any cool little projects that you've worked on and weird creations?
Yeah, it's something I've done pretty more when I was younger. Like I have been like living in squats in Northern Europe, which are reclaimed buildings
Mm-hmm.
that we just reinvent and do all kinds of crazy stuff. I used to go dumpster diving for years in the past. Now I've climbed the social economical ladder, so I don't have to do those things much. But something I do often is to buy things, just on the secondhand market.
Yeah.
Like, because it stopped a bit on the process. But you were talking about salvaging.
Hmm.
And our society have been like on those crazy energies that we call fossil fuels, that are an anomaly really in the history of human beings, and on this life on earth, that it really gives you the opportunities to have thousands of slaves working for you. And with those slaves, we have been extracting all kind of materials, from minerals to wood to all kinds of materials from this earth, and those things are now on the surface and ready
Hmm.
to go, like, and that's a really good opportunity. um, I think also that most of the products that we find now on the market, like Amazon or Chinese and so on, it's not to be racist, it's really like the globalization we're living in, that things have been cheapened down, the materials also, and the work behind also. Okay, so really like going into secondhand market, into barn sales, all those things are amazing to find all kinds of stuff. We were talking about like the boomer generation and this demographic that is going down.
Hmm.
Like, those people had blue collar jobs, and they had like pretty good tools, like pretty like solid British American steels. So if you can like practice your eye to what is of value and what is not, what is a good what is a good tool and what is not, this is really amazing. One thing I love doing is tool rehabilitation. I do live in a weird place now, and there is this barn that have been abandoned by the owner,
Hmm.
and he just forgot about all those stuff. He's a boomer that a lot of money and a lot of land, and he just forget like his garage like full of his tools, right? And
Yeah.
I love digging into it, and I take like rusty garden tools, and I refresh them. Like I oil the handle, I put out the rust, I sharpen them. Like, this is one of the most satisfying things to do, to dig back like something with history that you don't know like how many meters cubic of soil that have been digged down by this hole. And then you take this history that have been rusted and neglected, and that get back to what is ours in our generation as a work. Those things that are neglected just by like pure consumption of like, yeah, whatever, it was cheap, I go do something else. I think we have to like get back to like small stuff and say, oh, here is this piece of land that is neglected, how can I care for it? And
Hmm.
for me, like, tool rehabilitation is really a nice metaphor for what is the work around us. So I do tool rehabilitation. I've worked on many projects like house building that were like purely recycled, and they have such a power in them, like old barns beams like builded on one another, and you can see like the termites that were that dig holes. It's really another vibe to it than 2x4, like spruce 2x4, right? Like, there is really this energy that is not anymore in the market. So like,
Hmm.
those things are really valuable. And if you can have the eye for it, like, everywhere on the landscape there is junkyards, there is old barns, there is old tools lying around. Like, it's amazing. And just ask those people that are just overwhelmed and cluttered by all those stuff, and say, here, I can clean your space, and I'll take like those rusty tools that you never used anymore.
Yeah, you
And
haven't even looked at in 3 years.
yeah, definitely. And from there, like, you can do all kinds of stuff. So I love that. And yeah, like, this is so much a useful skill
Yeah,
to bring on the
absolutely.
table. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work 1-800 got junk, and the sheer amount of insanely valuable things that people would just be sending to the landfill was insane.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like when you go in what we call like church basement, where there is all those secondhand stuff, like it's mostly like consumer products, plastics for like kitchen made in the 70s. Like most of the things are crap, right? So
Yeah,
but if you have the eye for like what is really valuable, what is good metal, what is good wood, how can I say like this tool will not last for long, and this one like I can beat it up like real hard because it's made by good engineering. Like practicing this eye is really good and important.
absolutely. To step back to your presentation for your project, you said there were 3 priorities that young people and old people should be setting for themselves at the dawn of the great weirding. What are they? How do you make them tangible? And how can you find a community of people, like-minded people, especially during this time when we're not really actually supposed to be hanging out with anyone?
um could you remind me around that? I'm always throwing mental models all the time and frameworks. Like, could you? Um,
I didn't write down the 3 priorities that they were.
okay, okay.
But what is the great weirding?
The great reading get back to what we were talking
Yeah.
about like this uncertainty around like what are the narratives that we're saying around like what is a good life, what is like where are we going, what is the way of succeeding in this world, like I think those things are like all in the air, and I don't think there is, and I mean there is many answers, and those answers are confronting one another.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like on the narrative based on the information ecology. That's what I call the great weirding. But you can see also in climate, in what we call in forest ecology, we call them global changes,
Mm-hmm.
which are not like warming. They're just like, okay, we had a period of stability on the climate, that we were like doing agriculture on that, and we could like have a foresight around like what we will do at what time of the year. Like those cards are shuffled, and then you take like other characteristics like exotic species, like exotic insects, like pathologies that come in, and those things have properties when they come with one another. So it makes like a pretty like chaotic landscape that is
Mm-hmm.
going into the future, right? So that's what I would call the great weirding. And I think the 3 things I was saying is really around like what is anti-fragile like on this time. And let's remember that I did this presentation at the beginning of the pandemic. So
Mm-hmm.
so we were where we are going with that. Is it like the limbo? Like people like me that have been studying civilizational collapse, but existential risk and catastrophic risk. Like, pandemics was one of the things in the portfolio of things that can go wrong. And as I said, like there is emergent properties. When one thing goes wrong, there is many things that can go wrong because this is such a fragile construction that we are working on.
Mm-hmm.
So when this pandemic came, and we were really not prepared, and we were just like shutting down everything, and let's say like, okay, let's wait and see, and we saw like those things packing up, all those process around so many fronts. I was like, okay, like what are the things that could be anti-fragile in this situation? I think that was cash, control, and community. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes from a guy called Venkatesh Rao at Breaking Smart, a really intelligent guy. The great weirding concept is also his, so
Okay, cool.
let's give him credits. Um, so cash is around, like, I'm really into this 8 forms of capital framework, that financial capital is just one of the capital, and uh, it's not necessarily the one we should really focus on to have a resilient life and community. But cash as a liquidity, as something that I can change from hand to hand, to have liquidity, I think that
Hmm.
was really important at some point in the beginning of this pandemic, because we didn't know like how the financial markets would go on, how the fiat currency would react. So have liquidity to so you can turn yourself really fast. So like having no debts is a kind of liquidity too. Uh, so having a pot where you could like in any cases have the resources you wanted to, that was really important in what I saw. So cash was really important for the plasticity and the flexibility it gives you. And then control is getting back to the control of your time and the control of your attention,
Hmm.
right? like uh, are you weighted by obligations that are not yours, that you have not chosen? Are you participating in a statu quo that you don't believe in? I think many people are in this situation where they do see the world that is going like crazy, and
Hmm.
then they go into their job and to their everyday persona, and they talk like nothing happened, like we live in freaking 1982 or whatever, right? So like, yo, the world have changed. Like that could be the linchpin to the civilizational collapse. Like, guys, could we like change what we're talking about? So like this cognitive dissonance is like crazy. So have control of where you want to put your energy in, and that starts with attention, right?
Yeah.
Like that starts with like, where do I put my consciousness? Where is my will? Where do I direct my will? Am I able to put my will in things that I value, or I'm just like without any willpower because I've been drained by a cognitive dissonance, a job, or whatever I don't believe in. And so when I get back, I'm just like empty, and I just want to fill it with scrolling and whatever Netflix and so on. So I, I don't have the power to have my will. So the control of attention is the control of will too. So that was really important for me. And then so we had cash control and community.
Hmm.
Community is, you are the the, um, the sum of the 5 people you pass most of the time of.
Yeah.
We are social animal, and so forth and so on. Like those are things that every people knows, every people say, but those things are really important and valuable. Like, and I wanted to say, like, being deliberate around who you pass your time with. Are they the people that inspire you, that you want to be, to be like, or to participate in a project with? I think that's really important. And on those intentional communities and so on, like people are not that deliberate around how do I choose the people I want to be with on everyday basis. Like when you get back in the past, community was not just like who I feel I have like adjacent interest and affinities. Is really like I do need you and you do need me, and we interact on that. And that's really the basis of like civility, to get back of what we were talking about. Because if I need you, I cannot like have a conundrum on the small stuff, you know. We would have to solve our small problems, because if we have like a big fight with one another, like this is dangerous for you and this is dangerous for me. So like, and I don't want to be like purely like pragmatic and functional. I think community is also like, you know, dancing and sharing on
Yeah,
a,
there needs to be a little bit of wine and a little bit of dancing.
yeah, definitely. But like, try to know yourself. What are your skills? What are you putting on the table? And what you need from other people? What kind of other skills? What kind of other temperaments that will complement yours? Really, like if you want to build like friendship and communities on everyday basis, like try to do your starting five. You know, like how can I have like the best basketball team so we can like, you know, have great fun and going into like flow state together and having like this vibe of communitas. It's not like with one another that we are just like one another, right? It have to have diversity and complementarity, so we have like the best team, you know.
Absolutely. Well, I think we got
that was
time.
that was the tree. I
Oh, we cut out there a little bit.
go for it.
Nope, go for it. Those were the 3 priorities. And so how do you find a community like that in a time when we're not supposed to be hanging out? Without spending too much time on the internet and scrolling.
Yeah, that's pretty hard. Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah, it's tricky, eh?
Yeah, it's tricky, but man, like it gets back to what we were saying, like to someone who had really no like no relationship or doesn't want to be with, you know, want to change his life from top to bottom. But it never happened like that. If anybody does the inventory of his relationship, he will realize that he have like people that are on path that are interesting. There is mentors that are doing stuff that I do know, that are in my social network, that I can like say, hey, how can I be useful? Like I want to learn those things, you know. So I think if people do their inventory, I think there is all kinds of people. You know, finding mentorship is really important. And
Absolutely.
mentors, like I think we have something in the culture that like mentors have to be like perfect on all faces, you know. That's a guru, and that's will end badly most of the time, you know. Mentors have to be strategic around one skill, you know. It could be an asshole or it could be, it doesn't matter. Yeah, like if you want to learn a skill, you go to someone who is good in these skills, and you have like to let go of the rest of the stuff that can like bother you in some way. So that was just an apart, but I do think we all start from somewhere. Just as we said before that we all live in a landscape that we can learn from, we all live in infrastructure that we could be curious on. We can rediscover our social network and say like, hey man, I know you do that things, like could you help me with that? Or just like, you know, your family, people that you have chosen in the past, like, hey guys, let's do something new. Here is my project, how can I imply you with that? Like, if you live with your girlfriend, let's go out, babe. Like, just go out and discover. And there is so many stacking functions around walking with loved one in in the forest. Like you pass good time, you do bring your observation naturalist way. You could forage, you could, like, you could make sports, and I'm not talking about sexual sports, but you can also, like you can like function with what you have
Yeah.
right here, right now, so it's really getting back to the basics again.
Speaking of foraging, is that what's in all the jars behind you?
Mostly
Cool.
plants, for infusion, and mushrooms
Hmm.
for eating and infusion. And yeah, and also some things that have grew. And let me see, I think, yeah, mostly foraging stuff.
Awesome. What's your favorite thing to forage?
My
Or I guess
favorite.
whatever's available.
Oh no,
uh,
no. I guess I have a favorite, and um, I really like high bush cranberry,
ooh.
and I love it because nobody's like it. So that's one, like, what that's one of my biggest fruit. Um, I really like, I like plants that have tannins in
Mm.
them, so I can transform them into teas, like black teas. I do experiment a lot with friends around, like, reinventing patrimonial teas. We have like this plant called fireweed that is all around the boreal forest, and there is this black tea called Ivan chai in Russia, which is like the ancestor of the green tea of, like, Camellia sinensis.
Oh, wow.
The Russian claim that it's them that have give the knowledge of oxidation of leaves to the Chinese, and they have done this black tea without the active compound that wake you up, the tea.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, there is this black tea, and you can play with any plants that have tannins in them, just as you do with tea. So you can do black tea, green tea, puer, like all the spectrum of teas all came from the same plant. So as the same, you can do it with blackberries leaves, raspberry leaf, fireweed. Like, I've done all kinds of experimentation with that. So I love those
Awesome.
like,
Well,
I'm a big astringent bitter guy.
awesome. Cool. I haven't done much foraging. It's something that I'd really like to get more into. Do you have any tips for where to start other than your own backyard? Resources?
I mean, yeah, it's just how to start. I think planted identification
Hmm.
is the first step. Uh, and plant identification is really a skill like any other that you get momentum pretty fast. Is really around pattern recognition. Is really around being on the land and putting your eyes and also all your body. Foraging is more than the eyes. It's also putting it in your mouth, putting it in your nose. But first, for plant identification is really like asking questions around, like, hey, what's this plant? I've seen it before. Like, what is his shape? Even if I don't know his name or whatever, like, it's really like putting yourself into it. And
Hmm.
then when you have pattern recognition, it's really like fast instinct, right? Like, what we call instinct is really embodied knowledge of this momentum of pattern recognition, right? So first you start, and we do live in northern latitudes where it's like the diversity of plants is not that much. It does feel overwhelming,
Hmm.
like there is this wall of green where there is so much stuff. But you start a plant a month, let's say, like in spring and so on, and then you end the year with 10 plants. So from there, the pattern recognition is pretty fast. And when I give like botanical courses, I'm really influenced by this methodology made by what's his name, Thomas Elpel, called Botany in a Day. So
Mm.
it's based on families of plants. You know, like the taxonomy of plants. You have genera and then families and then species and so on. Like those things are not just out of the blue, right? Like families are based on sexual characteristics, like mostly flowers, that are the same for many plants. So when you do understand what is the mint family, how is the lamiaceae, how the flowers is shaped, you can see it like all the time, right? How is the
Hmm.
stem in a square feeling, the smell also, and then you know that all the mint family are edible in one way or another. So that really can fasten your process. If you can have like deliberate practice around pattern recognition of families and flowers, like the brassicaceae families, let's say, all those the lily families, all those families are and then so yeah. So that would be my tips.
Cool. Okay, couple more questions for you. A little bit more lighthearted. Um, so suppose that you have just been made the Minister of Education, and it's your job to make sure that every high school student that graduates reads 3 books. Which 3 books are they, and why?
Wow, that's a pretty good question. Um, what are the 3 books?
So
Oh my god.
every 17-year-old is going to read these 3 books. So which ones and why?
Oh man, that's a hard question. I'm
Yeah.
I'm such a bookworm. Like I love books and like I really like I know it's a question and I should give you like answers, but I will give you how I think about it. I
Yeah.
think I think one of the drama of school is really like not following your taste and building your own taste of what you like.
Mm.
So like that would be a tragedy for me to say like here is the canon of of our civilization. If you don't understand those things, you are not part of this game. Like I think taste building is really important. um 3 books for me that have been really influential. Let me look. Like books that I reread on a fiction based, there is this book, Japanese book called The Saber and the Feather.
Mhm.
And it's the story of the greatest samurai called Miyamoto Musashi, which have always been close to my heart, and I reread it many times. So that's one book. Maybe more on a philosophical base, I would, you know, the Tao Te Ching, the Taoist
Mhm.
sacred book, and the Chuang Tzu, which is the sequel of little stories of Taoists that have been really influential for me. And one of one of my greatest inspiration is Henry David Thoreau and his journals, which are like 5 volumes, huge.
Yeah.
I read them almost every day before going into the forest, and I'm really influenced by his mind.
Yeah. He's
So
he's
those
up
books
there.
are really influential, and maybe a last one. I think um, no, I will end with those.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
And we have one more question from our other Verge intern, Ben. He's asking, if you could speak with plants or animals, which do you choose and why?
with like one species.
Nope, any species. Like if you can talk to animals, you were talking to squirrels, you're talking to bears, you're talking to deer, and then if you're talking to plants, you're talking to things that photosynthesize.
Yeah.
Or get all their resources from mushrooms.
You know what? Like I would talk to other regnum. Like I would talk to mushrooms, like the fungus
Mm-hmm.
regnum, and I would ask them like what are you guys doing? Like
What are you up
like
to?
yeah, like plants, animals, like we do share some common characteristics, and I kind of get them, even if the plant kingdom is pretty wild, and we are just starting to understand like the neurology that are in the roots of plants and how they interact with one another, trees, how they talk to one another. Like that's new frontiers of knowledge. But fungus, they are so out there, and
Oh, they're
like
incredible.
if we could have like a common language, and we could like interact, I would say like what is the plane of experience you are living, and what's your role. I think they are really like the guardian of the Gaic energy, and they
Absolutely.
and like they know what is the niche of this blue planet in the universe. Like there is something there, and I think we do approach that when we do eat psychedelic mushrooms. I think we do download a bit of this knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and do communicate with one another. And I'm a psychonaut. Here I am, and I do try to communicate with mushrooms many times in my life, and the knowledge have been awesome. So that would be my
Cool. Yeah, that's a very good answer. Have you read or heard of Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake?
it is on my book list. I
It's so
love
good.
I love Sheldrake fathers, Rupert on the morphogenesis and the morphic field,
Mm-hmm.
and that his son is going into mycology and mushroom. Like this is just amazing, and I was like, oh man, like this kid I've been I've been grown up by such a insightful father. Like I want to read his book
Yeah, it's
back.
so good. Yeah, he was hanging out with Terrence McKenna when he was like 4 years old.
Yeah, that's also yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a real pleasure to talk to you, and I reckon we'll have you back on the show at some point. That was awesome.
Yeah, I hope so. And I know that we had some technical glitch. I hope the narrative and what we were talking was coherent for other people. And I'm looking forward for you inviting me again.
Awesome. And before we go, you were saying that you guys have your own permaculture stuff going on. Mycelium, is it called? Is it correct? And your own botany tours. So how would people access those and get to those?
Yeah, it's all in French.
Okay.
so so if people are interested, they could always like push the translating button. But yeah, mycelium, just mycelium lab on Google, you will find it. I'm also at the head of a nonprofit called ACPFNL. Oh, it's all in French, but I have podcasts there with some amazing entrepreneurs that are foragers, people in agroforestry, researcher, and so on. So if you do speak French, go for it. And you can find me on social media on Sam Chaib, and I post again in French all kinds of interesting stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Actually, Sam, we've got one question from the audience. What do you recommend for preserving foraged mushrooms?
um, the best way is always drying, and there is studies around mushrooms are absorbing vitamin D vitamin from the sun into the dried mushrooms, and we do know in our countries that we do need this vitamin badly in the winter, and it is one of the best
Wow.
natural source that you can have if you can dry them in the sun. So that's always the best, but and the flavor really stays for most of mushrooms. But you can also put them in oil or lacto fermented.
Hmm. I've
I've
done that before.
Oh, that's awesome. You could also like, more chewy, meaty mushrooms. You can always freeze them, and those are, just like any preserves. Mushrooms are pretty touchy. They are in the same family of meat with the level of care you want to take off, because there is so much bacterias and so on, so you want to be really careful. But drying, really the best. You will have like amazing winter suppers full of vitamin D.
Awesome. And that's so important, especially now. I'm reading a lot of stuff. I've been spending maybe a little bit too much time looking at the news and scrolling through that. But especially in the face of COVID, most people are dying or deficient and severely deficient in vitamin D.
Yeah, but there is nothing like going naked in the sun. That's the
There's absolutely nothing like that. You're so right.
this is your best guess to fight coronavirus. Go naked in the sun.
Oh, that's fantastic advice. Awesome, Sam. Well, thanks again so much. And we'll talk in the future.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mitch.
Alrighty, have fun till then.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.